Botswana is a landlocked country in southern Africa. Botswana is topographically flat with 70% of its territory part of Kalahari Desert. It is bordered by South Africa to the south and southeast, Namibia to the west and north, Zambia to the north and Zimbabwe to the northeast. With a population of slightly over 2.4 million people and a comparable land area to France, Botswana is one of the most sparsely populated countries in the world. It is the nation-state of Swana people who constitute nearly 80% of the population. Swana ethnic group are descended from Bantu-speaking peoples who migrated into southern Africa, including modern Botswana, in several waves before AD 600. In 1885, British colonized the area and declared a protectorate named Bechuanaland. As part of the decolonization of Africa, Bechuanaland became an independent Commonwealth Republic under its current name on the 30th of September, 1966. Since then, it has been a parliamentary republic with a consistent record of uninterrupted democratic elections, although the Botswana Democratic Party has been the only ruling party from independence until 2024. As of 2024, Botswana is the third least corrupt country in Africa, according to the Corruption Perceptions Index published by Transparency International. The economy is dominated by mining and tourism. Botswana has a per capita GDP of about $20,158 as of 2024. Botswana is the world's biggest diamond-producing country. Its relatively high gross national income per capita, estimates the fourth largest in Africa, gives the country a relatively high standard of living and the second highest Human Development Index of continental sub-Saharan Africa, after South Africa. Botswana is a member of the Southern African Customs Union, the Southern African Development Community, Commonwealth of Nations and United Nations. In June 1964, United Kingdom accepted proposals for a democratic self-government in Botswana. An independence conference held in London in February 1966. The seat of government was moved in 1965 from Mahikeng in South Africa to the newly established Gaborone, located near Botswana's border with South Africa. Based on 1965 constitution, the country held its first general elections under universal suffrage and gained independence on the 30th of September, 1966. With an area of 581,730 kilometers square and 1,000 meters altitude above sea level, Botswana is predominantly flat, tending towards gently rolling tableland. Consists of grasslands and savannas. Northern Botswana has one of the few remaining large populations of endangered African wild dog. Chobe National Park has the world's largest concentration of African elephants. Many indigenous San people relocated from their land to reservations. Their lands lie in the middle of the world's richest diamond field. The San people have lived sustainably on the land for millennia. Upon relocation on the reservations, they struggle to find employment and alcoholism is rampant. Country. Botswana is the largest diamond mining company operating in Botswana with 50% joint venture with the government. Botswana Tourism Organization is the country's official tourism group. Destinations in Botswana include Gaborone Yacht Club and Kalahari Fishing Club. Natural attractions such as Gaborone Dam and Mokolodi Nature Reserve. Golf courses maintained by Botswana Golf Union. In 2014, Okavango Delta of Botswana, the largest inland delta in the world, was inscribed as the 1000th World Heritage Site. Official language of Botswana is English while Setswana is widely spoken across the country. 77% of the citizens identify as Christians. Chobe National Park and Marimi Game Reserve, in Okavango Delta, are major tourist destinations. Other reserves include the Central Kalahari Game Reserve located in Kalahari Desert in Ganzi District, Makadik Gadi Pans National Park and NXAI Pan National Park are in the Central District in the Makadik Gadi Pan. Botswana faces two major environmental problems, drought and desertification, which are heavily linked. 3/4 of the country's human and animal populations depend on groundwater due to drought. Groundwater use through deep borehole drilling somewhat eased the effects of drought. Surface water is scarce in Botswana and less than 5% of the agriculture in the country is sustainable by rainfall. In the remaining 95% of the country, raising livestock is the primary source of rural income. Approximately 71% of the country's land is used for communal grazing, which has been a major cause of the desertification and the accelerating soil erosion in the country. Since raising livestock has been profitable for the people of Botswana, they continue to exploit the land with dramatically increasing numbers of animals. From 1966 to 1991, livestock population grew from 1.7 million to 5.5 million. Similarly, the human population has increased from 574,000 in 1971 to 1.5 million in 1995, a 161% increase in 24 years. Environmentalists report that Okavango Delta is drying up due to increased livestock grazing. The Okavango Delta is one of the major semi-forested wetlands in Botswana and one of the largest inland deltas in the world. The ecosystem is crucial to the survival of many animals. The mineral industry provides about 40% of all government revenues. Botswana has 971 kilometers of railway lines, 18,443.8 kilometers of roads and 92 airports, of which 12 have paved runways. Of these roads, 7,383.2 kilometers are paved. The national airline is Air Botswana, which flies domestically and to other countries in Africa. Botswana Railways is the national railway company, operating in the Southern African Regional Railway System. Botswana Railways offers rail-based transport facilities for moving a range of commodities for the mining sector and primary materials industries, as well as passenger train services and dry ports. As of 2024, Tswana are the majority ethnic group in Botswana, making up 79% of the population, followed by Kalanga at 11% and the San, Basawa, at 3%. The remaining 7% consists of white Batswana or European Batswana, Indians, and a number of other smaller Southern African ethnic groups. Fewer than 10,000 San people are still living their traditional hunter-gatherer way of life. Life expectancy at birth was 55 in 2009 according to the World Bank, having previously fallen from a peak of 64.1 in 1990 to a low of 49 in 2002. Since Botswana's 2011 census, current life expectancy is estimated at 54.06 years. In the northern part of Botswana, women in villages of Echa and Gumar are noted for their skill at crafting baskets from mokola palm and local dyes. The baskets are generally woven into three types: large, lidded baskets used for storage; large, open baskets for carrying objects on the head or winnowing threshed grain; smaller plates for winnowing pounded grain. These baskets steadily use color. The oldest paintings from both Botswana and South Africa depict hunting, animal and human figures and were made by the Khoisan, Kungsan Bushmen, over 20,000 years ago within the Kalahari Desert.
Botswana's music is mostly vocal and performed, sometimes without drums, depending on the occasion. It also heavily uses string instruments. The hands are also used as musical instruments by either clapping them together or against phthisis, goat skin turned inside out wrapped around the calf area, only used by men, to create music and rhythm. The national dish is seswa, pounded meat made from goat, beef or seguapa, dried cured meat ranging from beef to game meats. Either fillets of meat cut into strips following the grain of the muscle or flat pieces sliced across the grain. Botswana food is bogle, pap, maize porridge, boerewors, samp, magwinya, and mopane worms. Bogobe is made by putting sorghum, maize, or millet flour into boiling water, stirring into soft paste and slow cooking. Ting is milk and sugar added to fermented sorghum or maize. Ting without milk and sugar is eaten with meat or vegetables for lunch or dinner. Another way of making bogobe is to add sour milk and a cooking melon. Kalanga tribe calls this dish tofi. Madila is a traditional fermented milk product similar to yogurt or sour cream. Eswatini, formerly the Kingdom of Swaziland, is a landlocked country in southern Africa. It is bordered by Mozambique to its northeast and South Africa to its north, west, south, and southeast. At no more than 200 kilometers north to south and 130 kilometers east to west, Eswatini is one of the smallest countries in Africa. Despite this, its climate and topography are diverse, ranging from cool and mountainous highveld to hot and dry lowveld. Population composed of ethnic Swazis. The prevalent language is Swazi. The Swazis established their kingdom in the mid-18th century under the leadership of Ngwane III. The country and the Swazi take their names from Mswati II, the 19th century king under whose rule the country was expanded and unified. Its boundaries were drawn up in 1881 in the midst of the scramble for Africa. After Second Boer War, the kingdom under the name of Swaziland was a British High Commission territory from 1903 until it regained its full independence on the 6th of September 1968. In April 2018, the official name was changed from Kingdom of Swaziland to Kingdom of Eswatini, mirroring the name commonly used in Swazi. Eswatini is a developing country that is classified as having a lower middle income economy. As member of Southern African Customs Union and Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa, its main local trading partner is South Africa. To ensure economic stability, Eswatini's currency, the Lilangeni, is pegged to South African Rand. Eswatini's major overseas trading partners are the United States and the European Union. The majority of the country's employment is provided by its agricultural and manufacturing sectors. The government is an absolute monarchy, the last of its kind in Africa, and has been ruled by King Mswati III since 1986. Umhlanga, the reed dance held in August or September. Inkwala, the kingship dance held in December or January, are the nation's most important events. As of 2018, Eswatini has the 12th lowest life expectancy in the world, at 58 years. The population of Eswatini is young. As of 2018, people aged 14 years or younger constitute 35% of the country's population, and the median age is 22 years. An area of 17,364 kilometers square with 507 bird species and 107 mammal species including critically endangered South Central black rhinoceros and 7 other endangered or vulnerable species. Eswatini is rich in bird life including white-backed vultures, white-headed, lappet-faced and cape vultures, raptors such as martial eagles, bateleurs, and long-crested eagles, and the southernmost nesting site of the marabou stork. Eswatini's economy is diverse with agriculture, forestry, and mining accounting for about 13% of GDP, manufacturing, textiles and sugar-related processing representing 37% of GDP and services, with government services in the lead, constituting 50% of GDP. Sugarcane cultivation is the country's largest export. Eswatini's economy is closely linked to the economy of South Africa, from which it receives over 90% of its imports and to which it sends about 70% of its exports. Lesotho is a landlocked country in southern Africa. As an enclave of South Africa with which it shares a 1,106 kilometers border, it is the largest sovereign enclave in the world and the only one outside of the Italian peninsula. It is situated in Maloti Mountains and contains the highest peak in southern Africa. An area of over 30,000 kilometers square with about 2 million population. Capital and largest city is Maseru. Lesotho, also known as the Mountain Kingdom. The Sotho ethnic group or Basotho, from which the country derives its name, composes 99.7% of the country's current population, making it one of the most ethnically homogeneous in the world. Their native language, Sesotho, is the official language along with English. The name Lesotho translates to land of the Sesotho speakers. Formed in 1824 by King Moshoeshoe I, continuous encroachments by Dutch settlers made the king enter into an agreement with the British Empire to become a protectorate in 1868 and, in 1884, a crown colony. It achieved independence in 1966 and subsequently ruled by the Basotho National Party for 2 decades. Its constitutional government was restored in 1993 after 7 years of military rule. King Moshoeshoe II was exiled in 1990 but returned in 1992 and was reinstated in 1995. 1 year later, Moshoeshoe II died and his son Letsie III took the throne, which he still holds. Lesotho is considered a lower middle income country with significant socio-economic challenges. Almost Almost half of its population is below the poverty line, and the country's HIV/AIDS prevalence rate is the second highest in the world. However, it also targets a high rate of universal primary education and has one of the highest rates of literacy in Africa, 81% as of 2021. Lesotho covers 30,355 kilometers square, the only independent state in the world that lies entirely above 1,000 meters in elevation. Its lowest point of 1,400 meters is thus the highest lowest point of any country in the world. Over 80% of the country lies above 1,800 meters. Lesotho is the southernmost landlocked country in the world. It is the largest of the world's 3 independent states, completely surrounded by the territory of another country, with Vatican City and San Marino being the other 2. It is the only such state outside the Italian peninsula and Europe, as well as the only one that is not a microstate. About 12% of Lesotho is arable land, which is vulnerable to soil erosion. Estimated 40 million tons of soil are lost each year due to erosion. Because of its elevation, Lesotho remains cooler throughout the year than other regions at the same latitude. Most of the rain falls as summer thunderstorms. Maseru and surrounding lowlands may reach 30 degrees Celsius in summer. The temperature in the lowlands can get down to -7 degrees Celsius and the highlands to -18 degrees Celsius at times. Snow is common in the highlands between May and September. The higher peaks may experience snowfalls year-round. Periodic droughts affect on Lesotho's majority rural population, as some people living outside of urban areas rely on subsistence farming or small-scale agriculture as their source of income. There are 339 bird species in Lesotho, including 10 globally threatened species and 2 introduced species, 17 reptile species including geckos, snakes, lizards and 60 mammal species endemic to Lesotho, including the endangered white-tailed rat. Lesotho's flora is alpine due to mountainous terrain. Katsa Botanical Gardens houses a collection of medicinal plants and has a seed bank of plants from the Maliba-Matso River area. 3 terrestrial ecoregions lie within Lesotho's boundaries: Drakensberg Altemontane grasslands and woodlands, Drakensberg montane grasslands, and Highveld grasslands. The economy of Lesotho is based on agriculture, livestock, manufacturing, mining, and depends on inflows of workers' remittances and receipts from the Southern African Customs Union. Majority of households subsist on farming. The formal sector employment consists mainly female workers in the apparel sector, male migrant labor, miners in South Africa for 3 to 9 months, and employment by the government of Lesotho. The western lowlands form the main agricultural zone. Almost 50% of the population earn income through informal crop cultivation or animal husbandry, with nearly 2/3 of the country's income coming from the agricultural sector. Lesotho taken advantage of African Growth and Opportunity Act to become the largest exporter of garments to the US from sub-Saharan Africa. US brands and retailers sourcing from Lesotho include Foot Locker, Gap, Gloria Vanderbilt, JCPenney, Levi Strauss, Lululemon Athletica, Saks, Sears, Timberland, and Walmart. Water and diamonds are some of Lesotho's natural resources. Water is used through the 21-year multi-billion-dollar Lesotho Highlands Water Project under the authority of the Lesotho Highlands Development Authority. The project commenced in 1986. LHWP is designed to capture, store and transfer water from the Orange River system to South Africa's Free State and Greater Johannesburg area. Completion of the first phase of the project made Lesotho almost completely self-sufficient in the production of electricity and generated approximately $70 million in 2010 from the sale of electricity and water to South Africa. Diamonds are produced at Leeting, Mothi, Lekobong, and Cow mines, which combined are estimated to produce 240,000 carats of diamonds in 2014, worth $300 million. In 1957, South African adventurer Colonel Jack Scott, accompanied by Keith Whitelock, set out prospecting for diamonds. They found their diamond mine at 3,100 m elevation, on top of the Maluti Mountains in northeastern Lesotho, about 70 kilometers from Mokotlong at Leeting. In 1967, a 601-carat, 120.2 grams, diamond, Lesotho Brown, was discovered in the mountains by a Mosotho woman. In August 2006, a 603-carat, 120.6 grams, white diamond, Lesotho Promise, was discovered at the Leting La Terre mine. Another 478 carat, 95.6 grams, diamond was discovered at the same location in 2008. Official currency is Loti, which can be used interchangeably with South African rand. The Loti is at par with the rand. Lesotho, Eswatini, Namibia, and South Africa form a common currency and exchange control area known as the Common Monetary Area. Lesotho has a population of 2,281,454. Population distribution is 25% urban and 75% rural. Estimated annual increase in urban population is 3.5%. 60.2% of the population is between 15 and 64 years of age. In December 2011, the population of Lesotho is estimated to be more than 95% Christian. Cuisine of Lesotho includes African traditions and British influences. National dish of Lesotho is motoho, a fermented sorghum porridge. Staple foods include pap, or mealies, a cornmeal porridge covered with a sauce consisting of vegetables. Tea and locally brewed beer are choices for beverages. Lesotho is famed for its fermented ginger beer, of which there are two types, with and without raisins. Sishinyama is regularly sold independently throughout Lesotho with side dishes such as cabbage, pap, and baked bean salad. The national dress revolves around the Basotho blanket, a covering made originally of wool. Most of the Basotho blanket is now made out of acrylic fibers. The main manufacturer of the Basotho blanket is Aranda, which has a factory over the border in South Africa. British influence in Lesotho is visible through the remnants of trading posts that were operated from the 18th century into the 20th century. These are in the villages of Roma, Ramabantana, Harmatala, Malialia, and Semenkong. In the past, these lodges were employed in the sale of fuel, grains, mealie meals, and animals. Examples of San Rock art can be found in the mountains throughout Basutoland. There are examples in the village of Harmatella. The Marija Arts and Cultural Festival is held annually in the town of Marija, where missionaries arrived in 1833. The Basotho pony was historically ridden into battle and in the modern day used for transport and agriculture. Mozambique is a country located in Southeast Africa bordered by Indian Ocean to the east, Tanzania to the north, Malawi and Zambia to the northwest, Zimbabwe to the west, and Eswatini and South Africa to the southwest. The sovereign state is separated from the Comoros, Mayotte and Madagascar by the Mozambique Channel to the east. The capital and largest city is Maputo. Series of Swahili port towns developed between 7th and 11th centuries which contributed to the development of a distinct Swahili culture and dialect. In late medieval period, these towns were frequented by traders from Somalia, Ethiopia, Egypt, Arabia, Persia, and India. The voyage of Vasco da Gama in 1498 marked the arrival of Portuguese who began a gradual process of colonization and settlement in 1505. After over 4 centuries of Portuguese rule, Mozambique gained independence in 1975, becoming People's Republic of Mozambique. After only 2 years of independence, the country descended into an intense and protracted civil war lasting from 1977 to 1992. In 1994, Mozambique held its first multi-party elections and has since remained a stable presidential republic, although it still faces a low-intensity insurgency distinctively in the farthermost regions from the southern capital where Islam is dominant. Mozambique is endowed with rich and extensive natural resources, notwithstanding the country's economy is based chiefly on fishery and agriculture with a growing industry of food and beverages, chemical manufacturing, aluminium and oil. The tourism sector is expanding. South Africa remains Mozambique's main trading partner, preserving a close relationship with Portugal with a perspective on other European markets. Since 2014 to 2015, a significant decrease in household real consumption and a sharp rise in economic inequality. The nation remains one of the poorest and most underdeveloped countries in the world, ranking low in GDP per capita, human development, measures of inequality and average life expectancy. Population of 34,777,605 as of 2024, which is a 2.96% population increase from 2023, is composed of overwhelmingly Bantu peoples. However, the only official language in Mozambique is Portuguese, which is spoken in urban areas as a first or second language by most, and as a lingua franca between younger Mozambicans with access to formal education. The most important local languages include Songa, Makua, Sena, Chichwa, and Swahili. Glottolog lists 46 languages spoken in the country, of which one is a signed language. The largest religion in Mozambique is Christianity, with significant minorities following Islam and African traditional religions. The country is divided into two topographical regions by the Zambezi River. To the north of the Zambezi, narrow coastal strip gives way to inland hills and low plateaus. Rugged highlands are further west, which include Nyasa Highlands, Namuli Highlands, Angonia Highlands, Teet Highlands, and Macand Plateau covered with Mayambo woodlands. To the south of the Zambezi, the lowlands are broader with Mashonaland Plateau and Lebombo Mountains located in the deep south. Mozambique has tropical climate with two seasons, a wet season from October to March and a dry season from April to September. In 2019, Mozambique suffered floods and destruction from the devastating cyclones Idai and Kenneth. Mozambique, Malawi, Madagascar experienced climate disasters between January and March 2023, seriously affected farming, fisheries, and thousands of crops. There are 740 bird species in Mozambique, including 20 globally threatened species. Over 200 mammal species endemic to Mozambique, including critically endangered Selous zebra, Vincent's bush squirrel, and 13 other endangered or vulnerable species. Protected areas include 13 forest reserves, 7 national parks, 6 nature reserves, 3 frontier conservation areas, and 3 wildlife or game reserves. Official currency is metical. As of October 2023, $1 is roughly equivalent to 64 meticals. The US dollar, South African rand, and euro are widely accepted and used in business transactions. In 2010 to 2011, Anadarko Petroleum and Eni discovered the Mamba South gas field, recoverable reserves of 4,200 billion cubic meters of natural gas in the Rovuma Basin, off the coast of northern Cabo Delgado province. Mozambique scheduled to begin exporting LNG globally in 2024. The country's natural environment, wildlife, and historic heritage provide opportunities for beach, cultural, and ecotourism. Mozambique has a great potential for growth in its gross domestic product. The North beaches with clean water are suitable for tourism, especially those that are far from urban centers, such as Quirimbas Islands and the archipelago of Bazaruto. The Inhambane province attracts international divers because of the marine biodiversity and the presence of whale sharks and manta rays. There are several national parks, including Gorongosa National Park. There are over 30,000 kilometers of roads, but much of the network is unpaved. Like its Commonwealth neighbors, traffic circulates on the left, in spite of having not been colonized by the British. There is an international airport at Maputo, 21 other paved airports, and over 100 airstrips with unpaved runways. There are 3,750 kilometers of navigable inland waterways. There are rail links serving principal cities and connecting the country with Malawi, Zimbabwe, and South Africa. The Mozambican railway system developed over more than a century from 3 different ports on the coast that served as terminals for separate lines to the hinterland. The railroads were major targets during the Mozambican Civil War, were sabotaged by Renamo, and are being rehabilitated. The north-central provinces of Zambezia and Nampula are the most populous with 45% of the population. Estimated 4 million Makua are the dominant group in the northern part of the country. Sena and Shona are prominent in Zambezi Valley. Songa and Shangan people dominate southern Mozambique. Bantu people comprise 97.8% of the population, with the rest made up of Portuguese ancestry, Euro-Africans, and 45,000 Indians. During Portuguese colonial rule, a large minority of people of Portuguese descent lived permanently in almost all areas of the country. Mozambicans with Portuguese heritage at the time of independence numbered about 360,000. Many of these left the country after independence from Portugal in 1975. estimates of Mozambique's Chinese community ranging from 7,000 to 12,000 as of 2007. According to a 2011 survey, the total fertility rate was 5.9 children per woman, with 6.6 in rural areas and 4.5 in urban areas. In 2007 census, Christians made up 59.2% of Mozambique's population, Muslims comprised 18.9%, 7.3% of the people held other beliefs and 13.9% had no religion. The Makand are known for their wood carving and elaborate masks, which are used in traditional dances. There are two different kinds of wood carvings: Shetani, evil spirits, which are mostly carved in heavy ebony, tall, and elegantly curved with symbols and non-representational faces, and Wjama, which are totem-type carvings which illustrate lifelike faces of people and various figures. These sculptures are usually referred to as family trees because they tell stories of many generations. Bantu-speaking peoples migrated into Mozambique as early as 4th century BC. It is believed between the 1st and 5th centuries AD, waves of migration from the west and north went through the Zambezi River Valley and then gradually into the plateau and coastal areas of southern Africa. They established agricultural communities or societies based on herding cattle. They brought with them the technology for smelting and smithing iron. From the late 1st millennium AD, vast Indian Ocean trade networks extended as far south into Mozambique as evidenced by the ancient port town of Chibuene. Beginning in the 9th century, a growing involvement in Indian Ocean trade led to the development of numerous port towns along the entire East African coast, including modern-day Mozambique. Largely autonomous, these towns broadly participated in the incipient Swahili culture. Islam was often adopted by urban elites, facilitating trade. In Mozambique, Sofala, Angoche and Mozambique Island were regional powers by the 15th century. The towns traded with merchants from both the African interior and the broader Indian Ocean world. Particularly important were the gold and ivory caravan routes. Inland states like the Kingdom of Zimbabwe and Kingdom of Mutapa provided the coveted gold and ivory, which were then exchanged up the coast to larger port cities like Kilwa and Mombasa. The island of Mozambique, after which the country is named, is a small coral island at the mouth of Mosharil Bay on the Nacala coast of northern Mozambique, first explored by Europeans in the late 15th century. When Portuguese explorers reached Mozambique in 1498, Arab trading settlements had existed along the coast and outlying islands for several centuries. From about 1500, Portuguese trading posts and forts displaced the Arabic commercial and military hegemony, becoming regular ports of call on the new European sea route to the east, the first steps in what was to become a process of colonization. The voyage of Vasco da Gama around the Cape of Good Hope in 1498 marked the Portuguese entry into trade, politics, and society of the region. The Portuguese gained control of the island of Mozambique and the port city of Sofala in the early 16th century. By the 1530s, small groups of Portuguese traders and prospectors seeking gold penetrated the interior regions. Here they set up garrisons and trading posts at Sena and Tete on the Zambezi and tried to gain exclusive control over the gold trade. In the central part of the Mozambique territory, the Portuguese attempted to legitimize and consolidate their trade and settlement positions through the creation of prazos. These land grants tied emigrants to their settlements, and inland Mozambique was largely left to be administered by prazeros, the grant holders. While central authorities in Portugal concentrated their direct exercise of power on, in their view, the more important Portuguese possessions in Asia and the Americas. Namibia is a country in southern Africa. Its western border is the Atlantic Ocean. It shares land borders with Angola and Zambia to the north, Botswana to the east and South Africa to the east and south. Although it does not border Zimbabwe, less than 200 meters of the Botswanan right bank of the Zambezi River separates the two countries. Its capital and largest city is Windhoek. The driest country in sub-Saharan Africa, Namibia has been inhabited since prehistoric times by the Khoi, San, Damora, and Nama people. Around the 14th century, immigrating Bantu peoples arrived as part of the Bantu expansion. From 1600 the Ovambo formed kingdoms, such as Ondonga and Ukwanyama. In 1884, German Empire established rule over most of the territory, forming a colony known as German Southwest Africa. Between 1904 and 1908, German troops waged a punitive campaign against the Hera and Nama, which escalated into the first genocide of the 20th century. German rule ended during the First World War with a 1915 defeat by South African forces. In 1920, after the end of the war, the League of Nations mandated administration of the colony to South Africa. From 1948, with the National Party elected to power, this included South Africa applying apartheid to what was then known as Southwest Africa. In the later 20th century, uprisings and demands for political representation resulted in the United Nations assuming direct responsibility over the territory in 1966, but South Africa maintained de facto rule until 1973, when the UN recognized the Southwest Africa People's Organization as the official representative of the Namibian people. Namibia gained independence from South Africa on the 21st of March 1990, following the South African Border War. However, Walvis Bay and the Penguin Islands remained under South African control until 1994. Namibia is a stable parliamentary democracy. Agriculture, tourism and mining industry, including mining for gem diamonds, uranium, gold, silver and base metals, form the basis of its economy, while the manufacturing sector is comparatively small. Despite significant GDP growth since its independence, poverty and inequality remain significant in the country. 40.9% of the population is affected by multidimensional poverty, and more than 400,000 people continue to live in informal housing. Income disparity in the country is one of the world's highest. With a population of 3,022,401 people, Namibia is one of the most sparsely populated countries in the world. The dry lands of Namibia have been inhabited since prehistoric times by the San, Damara, and Nama. For thousands of years, the Khorasan peoples of southern Africa maintained a nomadic life, the Khoikhoi as pastoralists and the San people as hunter-gatherers. Around the 14th century, immigrating Bantu people began to arrive during the Bantu expansion from Central Africa. Namibia became a German colony in 1884 under Otto von Bismarck to forestall perceived British encroachment, and was known as German Southwest Africa. The Palgrave Commission by the British governor in Cape Town determined that only the natural deepwater harbour of Walvis Bay was worth occupying, and thus annexed it to the Cape Province of British South Africa. From 1904 to 1907, the Hera and the Namakwa took up arms against ruthless German settlers. In a calculated punitive action by the German settlers, government officials ordered the extinction of the natives in the Over-Hera and Namakwa genocide. In what has been called the first genocide of the 20th century, the Germans systematically killed 10,000 Nama, half the population, and approximately 65,000 Hera, about 80% of the population. The survivors, when finally released from detention, were subjected to a policy of dispossession, deportation, forced labor, racial segregation, and discrimination in a system that in many ways foreshadowed the apartheid established by South Africa in 1948. Most Africans were confined to so-called native territories, which under South African rule after 1949 were turned into homelands. The German Minister for Development Aid apologized for the Namibian genocide in 2004. Only in 2021 did the German government acknowledge the genocide and agreed to pay €1.1 billion over 30 years in community aid. At 825,615 kilometers square, Namibia is the world's 34th largest country after Venezuela. Situated between the Namib and the Kalahari deserts, Namibia has the least rainfall of any country in sub-Saharan Africa. The Namibian landscape consists generally of 5 geographical areas, each with characteristic abiotic conditions and vegetation, with variation within and overlap between them: the Central Plateau, the Namib, the Great Escarpment, the Bushveld, and the Kalahari Desert. The Central Plateau runs from north to south, bordered by the Skeleton Coast to the northwest, the Namib Desert and its coastal plains to the southwest, the Orange River to the south, and the Kalahari Desert to the east. The Central Plateau is home to the highest point in Namibia at Koningstein elevation, 2,606 meters. The Namib is a broad expanse of hyper-arid gravel plains and dunes that stretches along Namibia's entire coastline. It varies between 100 and 200 kilometers in width. Areas within the Namib include the Skeleton Coast and the Kayokuveld in the north and the extensive Namib Sand Sea along the central coast. The bushveld is found in northeastern Namibia along the Angolan border and in the Caprivi Strip. The area receives a significantly greater amount of precipitation than the rest of the country, averaging around 400 millimeters per year. The area is generally flat and the soils sandy, limiting their ability to retain water and support agriculture. The Kalahari Desert, an arid region that extends into South Africa and Botswana, is one of Namibia's well-known geographical features. The Kalahari, while popularly known as a desert, has a variety of localized environments, including some verdant and technically non-desert areas. The succulent karoo is home to over 5,000 species of plants, nearly half of them endemic. Approximately 10% of the world's succulents are found in the karoo. The reason behind this high productivity and endemism may be the relatively stable nature of precipitation. Namibia's coastal desert is one of the oldest deserts in the world. Its sand dunes, created by strong onshore winds, are the highest in the world. Because of the location of the shoreline at the point where Atlantic's cold water reaches Africa's hot climate, often extremely dense fog forms along the coast. Near the coast there are areas where the dune hummocks are vegetated. Namibia has rich coastal and marine resources that remain largely unexplored. The Caprivi Strip extends east from the northeastern corner of the country. Namibia is the driest country in sub-Saharan Africa and depends largely on groundwater. More than 100,000 boreholes have been drilled in Namibia over the past century. Namibia has various species of wildlife including wild dog, dik-dik, and critically endangered black rhino. There are 200 terrestrial mammal species, 645 bird species, and 115 fish species. Namibia's economy is tied closely to South Africa's due to their shared history. Namibia has a highly developed banking and financial services sector with modern infrastructures such as online banking and cell phone banking. As of 2023, youth unemployment rate of 38.4% is one of the highest in the world. However, Namibia has high percentage of skilled labor relative to SADC countries and low unemployment rates for skilled workers. The cost of living in Namibia is slightly above average because most goods, including cereals, need to be imported. Its capital city, Windhoek, is the 150th most expensive place in the world for expatriates to live. Despite the remote nature of much of the country, Namibia has seaports, airports, highways, well-maintained roads, infrastructure, and railways. It is an important regional transportation hub for its seaports and trade with landlocked neighboring countries. The Central Plateau already serves as a transportation corridor from the more densely populated north to South Africa, the source of 4/5 of Namibia's imports. About half of the population depends on agriculture for its livelihood, but Namibia must still import some of its food. Providing 25% of Namibia's revenue, mining is the single most important contributor to the economy. Namibia is the fourth largest exporter of non-fuel minerals in Africa and was the world's fourth largest producer of uranium. Rich alluvial diamond deposits make Namibia a primary source for gem-quality diamonds. While Namibia is known predominantly for its gem diamond and uranium deposits, a number of other minerals are extracted industrially such as lead, tungsten, gold, tin, fluorspar, manganese, marble, copper, and zinc. Although much of the world's diamond supply comes from what have been called African blood diamonds, Namibia managed to develop a diamond mining industry largely free of conflict, extortion, and murder that have plagued many other African nations with diamond mines. Tourism is a major contributor, 14.5%, to Namibia's GDP, creating tens of thousands of jobs, 18.2% of all employment, and servicing over 1 million tourists per year. The country is a prime destination in Africa and is known for ecotourism, which features Namibia's extensive wildlife. There are many lodges and reserves to accommodate ecotourists. Sport and trophy hunting is also a large and growing component of the Namibian economy, accounting for 14% of total tourism in the year 2000, or $19.6 million, with Namibia boasting numerous species sought after by international sport hunters. In addition, extreme sports such as sandboarding, skydiving, and 4x4 have become popular, and many cities have companies that provide tours. The most visited places include capital city of Windhoek, Caprivi Strip, Fish River Canyon, Sossusvlei, Skeleton Coast Park, Cesarium, Etoshapan, and the coastal towns of Swakopmund, Walvis Bay and Luderitz. Windhoek plays a very important role in Namibia's tourism due to its central location and close proximity to Hosea Kutiko International Airport. According to the Namibia Tourism Exit Survey, 56% of all tourists visiting Namibia in 2012 to 2013 visited Windhoek. Many of Namibia's tourism-related parastatals and governing bodies such as Namibia Wildlife Resorts and Namibia Tourism Board, as well as Namibia's tourism-related trade associations such as the Hospitality Association of Namibia, are headquartered in Windhoek. There are also a number of notable hotels in Windhoek, such as Windhoek Country Club Resort, and some international hotel chains such as Hilton Hotels and Resorts. Namibia's primary tourism-related governing body, the Namibia Tourism Board, was established by an Act of Parliament, the Namibia Tourism Board Act, 2000. Its primary objectives are to regulate the tourism industry and to market Namibia as a tourist destination. There are also a number of trade associations that represent the tourism sector in Namibia. The only bulk water supplier in Namibia is Nam Water, which sells it to respective municipalities, which in turn deliver it through their reticulation networks. In rural areas, the Directorate of Rural Water Supply in the Ministry of Agriculture, Water and Land Reform is in charge of drinking water supply. 298 schools have no toilet facilities. Over 50% of child deaths related to lack of water, sanitation, or hygiene, 23% due to diarrhea. Apart from residences for upper and middle-class households, sanitation is insufficient in most residential areas. Private flush toilets are too expensive for virtually all residents in townships due to their water consumption and installation cost. Namibia has the second lowest population density of any sovereign country after Mongolia, as well as having the lowest population density of any sovereign country with a coastline. In 2017, there were on average 3.08 people per kilometre square. Total fertility rate in 2015 was 3.47 children per woman according to the UN, which is lower than the average TFR in sub-Saharan Africa of 4.7. The Namibian population comprises Bantu and Khoisan peoples. The Bantu groups include the Hera, Kavango, Lozi, Ovambo, and Swana peoples. The Khoisan groups encompass the Basta Colored, Damara, Nama, and San peoples. There are 40,000 Chinese minority in Namibia in 2006. Whites, being mainly of Afrikaner, German, British, and Portuguese origin, make up between 4.0 and 7% of the population. Although their proportion of the population decreased after independence due to emigration and lower birth rates, they still form the second largest population of European ancestry, both in terms of percentage and actual numbers, in sub-Saharan Africa, after South Africa. The majority of Namibian whites and nearly all those who are of mixed race speak Afrikaans and share similar origins, culture, and religion as the white and colored populations of South Africa. A large minority of whites, around 30,000, trace their family origins back to the German settlers who colonized Namibia prior to the South African invasion during the First World War, and they maintain German cultural and educational institutions. Nearly all Portuguese settlers came to the country from the former Portuguese colony of Angola. The 1960 census reported 526,004 persons in what was then Southwest Africa, including 73,464 whites, 14%. Christian community makes up 80% to 90% of the population of Namibia, with at least 75% Protestant, of which at least 50% are Lutheran. Lutherans are the largest religious group, a legacy of the German and Finnish missionary work during the country's colonial times. 10% to 20% of the population hold indigenous beliefs. Islam in Namibia is subscribed to by about 9,000 people, many of them Nama. Namibia is home to a small Jewish community of about 100 people. Majority Namibians speak and understand English and Afrikaans. Up to 1990, English, German, and Afrikaans were official languages. Namibian culture is similar to South African culture due to their tied history and family nationalities. Few Namibians express interest in permanently settling in other countries. They prefer the safety of their homeland, have a strong national identity, and enjoy a well-supplied retail sector. Namibians are typically very social and are consistently among the highest alcohol consumption rates per capita and ranked first in Africa for beer consumption per capita.